First, there was Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's first wife and the queen who had already earned her place as the established royal. Catherine was a woman of strength, dignity, and deep devotion. She was the daughter of the powerful Spanish monarchs, a queen who'd given Henry a daughter, Mary, and who stood firm as England's rightful queen for years. Then there was Anne Boleyn, young, vibrant, and magnetic. Not yet a queen, but quickly becoming the center of Henry's attention and desire. Anne was everything Catherine wasn't: fiery, unpredictable, and full of ambition. Raised in the French court and known for her wit and charm, Anne brought a fresh, modern energy to the Tudor court. She wasn't content to be just another lady-in-waiting. She wanted more, much more. These two women, connected by the same man and the same crown, were about to become locked in a bitter, emotional battle that would shake the foundations of England. The story of Catherine and Anne is one of power, love, jealousy, and heartbreak. A royal triangle where the prize wasn't just Henry's affection, but control over the entire kingdom. Catherine ruled with grace and experience, representing tradition and stability. She was the queen the kingdom had known and respected. Anne, on the other hand, was the wild card, the rising star whose charm and boldness threatened to upend everything. Her presence was electric, and her ambitions dangerous. The stage was set for an inevitable clash, a duel not fought with swords, but with secrets, influence, and raw emotion. As Henry's heart and loyalties wavered, the court split into factions. Whispers filled the halls, and the tension between the two women grew thicker with every passing day. This wasn't just a personal feud. It was a battle for the future of England itself. And while the king held the ultimate power, it was the rivalry between these two queens that would fuel one of the most dramatic chapters in British history.
Henry VIII's heart was caught in a battle that no king should ever have to fight. On one side was Catherine of Aragon, his first wife and queen, a woman who had stood by him for years, ruled England with dignity, and given him a daughter, Mary. On the other side was Anne Boleyn, young, vibrant, and full of fire, who had awakened a passion in Henry that he couldn't ignore. But this wasn't just a simple love triangle. It was a storm of conflicting emotions pulling the king in every direction. Henry's obsession with Anne wasn't quiet or subtle. It was fierce and all-consuming. He thought about her constantly, her sharp wit, her daring spirit, the way she resisted him and made him want her more. He was so consumed by lust and desire that it clouded his judgment, drove his decisions, and shook the very foundation of his reign. His once steady and confident demeanor gave way to restless pacing, sleepless nights, and desperate letters pouring out his longing. The king was caught in a whirlwind of emotions he couldn't control. But alongside this lust came deep frustration, and it was aimed squarely at Catherine. Henry's anger wasn't just personal, it was political. Catherine represented everything standing in the way of his future with Anne: his desire for a male heir, the alliance with Spain, and the Catholic Church's refusal to grant him a divorce. To Henry, Catherine became a symbol of the old order he wanted to overthrow. Every day he spent with her was a reminder of what he was losing. His rage simmered beneath the surface, coloring his interactions with coldness and resentment. This emotional turmoil tore Henry apart. He was a king trapped between duty and desire, love and ambition, loyalty and rebellion. His heart pulled him toward Anne's fiery passion, but his crown tied him to Catherine's royal bloodline. The court itself became a battleground for these opposing forces, Intimate, secret meetings with Anne were shadowed by formal, tense ceremonies with Catherine. The king was losing control, not just of his emotions, but of his kingdom. For Henry, this was more than just a private struggle. It was a crisis that would change England forever. His torn heart was the spark that ignited political upheaval, religious revolution, and a historic break from tradition. And all because of a king who dared to choose desire over duty.
While Henry's heart raced with obsession and rage, Catherine of Aragon faced a very different kind of battle, one of quiet strength and unbearable heartbreak. As the king's attention shifted toward Anne Boleyn, Catherine was left to endure not only the sting of rejection, but the crushing weight of public humiliation. Yet through it all, she remained a figure of dignity and resilience, even as whispers and doubts began to cloud her place at court. Catherine's life had been devoted to Henry and England. She was not just a wife, she was a queen who had ruled alongside her husband, managed political alliances, and mothered his only surviving child, Mary. But as Henry's obsession with Anne Boleyn grew, Catherine's position became increasingly fragile. The court that once respected her began to question her worth, fueled by gossip and the king's own frustration. Despite the shifting tides, Catherine held her head high. Behind closed doors, she wrestled with a storm of emotions: heartbreak, anger, and deep sorrow. Imagine watching the man you loved pour his passion and dreams into another woman while your own fate slipped away. That kind of emotional torture is impossible to overstate. Yet, Catherine showed remarkable strength. In public, she wore a mask of composure, delivering royal duties with grace and poise. She answered the court's cold glances and whispered rumors with silence and dignity, refusing to be broken by the cruelty around her. Her resilience became a silent protest, a reminder that a queen's power isn't always loud or flashy. It can be quiet and unyielding. But the emotional cost was immense. Nights spent alone in her chambers, silent tears shed in the shadows, the pain of knowing her marriage was unraveling before the eyes of the kingdom. Every day was a reminder of what she was losing, not just a husband, but her identity as queen and the life she had built. Catherine's silent strength was more than personal endurance. It was a testament to a woman trapped in a brutal political game where love, power, and betrayal intertwined. Her story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, courage can shine quietly, and sometimes that courage is the fiercest power of all.
As Henry's passion for Anne Boleyn grew stronger, the power dynamics at court shifted dramatically. Anne's presence wasn't just a fleeting distraction anymore. It was a rising force that steadily pushed Catherine of Aragon to the sidelines. While Catherine's influence waned, Anne's star shone brighter, setting the stage for an intense battle within the walls of the royal court. Anne arrived at court like a storm, full of energy, charm, and ambition. She wasn't content to simply be Henry's secret love. She wanted respect, power, and a place where she could shape the future. Her boldness and wit earned her a loyal group of supporters who believed she was the key to England's new era. These courtiers admired her daring and often looked down on Catherine, viewing the aging queen as a symbol of the old guard and a barrier to progress. Meanwhile, Catherine's supporters fought fiercely to protect her dignity and rightful place. They saw Anne as an opportunist, a dangerous outsider trying to unseat a queen who had proven her loyalty for decades. The court became sharply divided. Two factions emerged, each fiercely loyal to their queen. The tension was palpable. Whispers and rumors spread like wildfire.
Behind closed doors, courtiers exchanged gossip about Anne's supposed manipulations and Catherine's fading power. Every glance, every conversation became charged with suspicion and rivalry. The royal court, once a place of ceremony and tradition, had turned into a battlefield where alliances were formed and broken on a daily basis. Anne's public moments became acts of defiance and triumph. Whether she was laughing at a banquet or commanding the king's attention during court, her confidence was impossible to ignore. Each success was a blow to Catherine's standing and a signal that Anne's rise was unstoppable. But this power shift wasn't without consequences. The deeper Anne climbed, the more dangerous her position became. The enemies she made were powerful and determined to bring her down. The court's atmosphere grew darker, heavy with jealousy, anger, and fear. The royal court was no longer just about politics. It was a high-stakes drama fueled by ambition, loyalty, and the ruthless fight for power. Anne and Catherine weren't just two women sharing a king. They were two queens, locked in a war that would change England forever.
The simmering tension between Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon finally reached a boiling point. What had started as a subtle power struggle erupted into full-blown jealousy, rage, and heartbreak, right in the heart of the royal court. Their rivalry wasn't just personal anymore. It was public, toxic, and impossible to ignore. One of the most unforgettable moments was the countless public snubs exchanged between the two queens. Catherine, proud and defiant, refused to acknowledge Anne's growing status, while Anne, equally bold, flaunted her favor with the king. These silent battles were fought with sharp looks, icy silences, and carefully timed absences. Every court event became a stage where their bitter war played out, with courtiers nervously watching who would crack first. Behind the scenes, political attacks grew more vicious. Catherine's supporters accused Anne of being manipulative and unchaste, spreading rumors that aimed to tarnish Anne's reputation and question her suitability as queen. On the other side, Anne's faction painted Catherine as a stubborn obstacle, unwilling to accept the inevitable change. The court buzzed with gossip, alliances shifted, and the stakes became deadly serious. But beyond politics, the emotional toll was devastating. Catherine faced not just rejection from the king, but the heartbreak of watching the man she once loved obsess over another woman. Anne's rise was a constant reminder of what Catherine was losing: her husband's affection, her royal status, and her place in history. For Anne, every victory carried the weight of knowing she was dismantling someone else's world, even if it was necessary for her survival. Their relationship was a powder keg of conflicting emotions: jealousy, rage, sorrow, and fierce determination. It wasn't just about a throne or a crown. It was about identity, respect, and the brutal realities of power. The emotional explosions between these two queens echoed throughout the kingdom, shaking the very foundations of the Tudor court. Visualize tense whispered confrontations in shadowy hallways, the charged atmosphere during royal banquets, and moments where anger and sadness flash across the queens' faces. The court watched as history unfolded, a dramatic battle fueled by desire, pride, and pain. This explosive rivalry would soon push England to its limits, setting the stage for revolutions in love, politics, and religion.
The bitter rivalry between Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon didn't just impact their personal lives, it ripped England apart in ways no one could have predicted. What began as a painful battle between two queens spiraled into a political and religious crisis that would redefine the kingdom forever. Henry VIII's obsession with Anne forced him into uncharted territory. When the Pope refused to annul his marriage to Catherine, Henry took a drastic step. He broke away from the Catholic Church and declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England. This wasn't just about swapping wives. It was a monumental shift that sparked decades of religious turmoil, civil unrest, and deep divisions within English society. The royal court itself was left in chaos. Catherine, once queen and beloved by many, was stripped of her title and banished from court, forced to live out her final years in relative isolation. She remained proud and dignified, but the pain of rejection and public humiliation weighed heavily on her. Meanwhile, Anne, crowned queen in Catherine's place, found herself walking a razor's edge. Surrounded by enemies and caught in fierce political rivalries, her reign was as dangerous as it was dazzling. Both women paid a steep emotional price. Catherine's heartbreak was profound, abandoned by her husband and cast aside after years of loyalty. Anne, who had fought fiercely to claim her crown, ultimately faced a tragic downfall, caught in the deadly games her ambition helped ignite. Their personal pain was inseparable from the turmoil they caused, making their story as much about human tragedy as political upheaval. Beyond the palace walls, the kingdom itself was forever changed. Families were divided by religion, churches were destroyed or transformed, and centuries-old traditions were overturned. The break with Rome ushered in the English Reformation, reshaping the spiritual and political landscape of England for generations to come. Visuals here should weave together fading portraits of Catherine and Anne, scenes of historic landmarks like Westminster Abbey and the Tower of London, and dramatic reenactments of court turmoil. The narration should tie the intimate heartbreak of these two women to the sweeping changes that altered an entire nation. In the end, the rivalry between Anne and Catherine left a legacy far greater than either woman could have imagined, one of passion, power, sacrifice, and a kingdom forever divided.